There's a moment every older man has felt. You're talking to a younger woman. You feel the connection, light laughter, lingering eye contact. You're thinking, she's into me. Then suddenly, cold. She pulls back. Conversation fades. She's politely gone. And you're left wondering, what just happened? The truth is you didn't say the wrong thing. You didn't do the wrong thing. You were the wrong energy. This video breaks down 7 silent habits that turn younger women off, even when you think you're doing everything right. These aren't the obvious red flags. These are the subtle signals that tell her, he's not it. Let's break it down. Imagine this. 2 men walk into the same room. Both are in their late 40s. One walks with a grounded stillness, not seeking attention, but receiving it. His eyes scan slowly. He's present, composed. The other walks in 5 minutes later, loud, animated, dressed like he just raided his nephew's closet. He's trying to relive 25, but only showing how far away from it he really is. Guess who the younger women look at? Here's why. Habit 1. Trying to act younger instead of owning your age. Younger women don't hate older men. They hate older men who hate being older. It shows up like this. You force slang you don't even understand. You chase TikTok trends you don't believe in. You dress to fit in with guys who don't even know who George Clooney is. But here's the plot twist. Your age isn't a flaw. It's a competitive advantage, if you know how to use it. Let me tell you a quick story. A friend of mine in his mid-50s, gray at the temples, walked into a lounge wearing a dark tailored blazer, clean Chelsea boots, and a watch older than some of the people in the room. He sat down, ordered whiskey, neat. Didn't chase conversation. Didn't scan the room. And within 10 minutes, a 28-year-old woman walked over to him. What? Because he wasn't imitating youth. He was owning presence. Trying to look young screams, I'm not comfortable with who I am. And insecurity is louder than any outfit. Want to stand out? Don't blend in. Embody what youth can't fake, confidence rooted in experience. This next habit might feel like love. A lot of men confuse this next habit with being attentive, caring, even romantic. But to her, feels like suffocation. Habit 2, trying to control her instead of connecting with her. Imagine this. She's getting ready for a night out. Hair done, perfume subtle, that black dress you secretly love. You smile, but something inside you tenses. Who's going to be there? Can you text me when you arrive? You're really wearing that? You tell yourself it's concern. She hears control. And here's the part that stings. She doesn't argue. She doesn't push back. She just emotionally pulls away. Because no woman, especially a younger one, wants to feel like she's being monitored instead of trusted. You might think you're protecting the connection. But in her world, it feels like being handled, not loved. I had a client once, 52, well-off, well-meaning. He started dating a 30-year-old woman with her own business, her own life. He meant well, but he always needed to know where she was, who she was texting, when she'd be home. Eventually she left. And her reason was simple. I want a partner, not a parole officer. See, this kind of control doesn't come from strength. It comes from fear. Fear of loss. Fear of being replaced. Fear of not being enough. But when you act from fear, you don't create connection. You destroy it. The irony? The more space you give her to breathe, the closer she'll want to be. A grounded man doesn't grip. He doesn't chase. He leads by example. He trusts. And if she walks away, he knows he didn't lose her. She just wasn't aligned. You're not here to manage her. You're here to inspire her to choose you, daily. And that starts with letting go of the urge to control, and replacing it with the power to trust. The next one is a silent killer of attraction. She might smile when you say it, laugh politely, even compliment you. But inside, she's gone. Here's why. Habit 3, flashing your wealth as your only value. He sat across from her at dinner, Rolex glinting in the candlelight, keys to a sports car on the table, casually name-dropping a resort in the Maldives. She smiled, nodded, laughed at the right times. But inside, she had already checked out. Not because he had money, but because he led with it. Here's the truth. Women aren't turned off by financial success. They're turned off when that's all you bring. You might think flexing your wealth makes you more desirable. But when it feels like a performance, it doesn't say confidence. It says insecurity. Real wealth doesn't need to speak. It shows up in your presence, not your possessions. I remember talking to a woman who said, "It wasn't that he had money, it was that he needed me to know it." And that told me everything. If you're constantly signaling your value with price tags, it means you haven't owned your value without them. A high-value man could be wearing a $30 shirt and still walk into a room like he owns it. Why? Because confidence isn't for sale. Here's the difference. A man with money who's grounded? Magnetic. A man who uses money to compensate? Repellent. So instead of bragging about your watch, invest in being watchable. Instead of talking about your car, move with quiet power. Let your energy speak louder than anything in your wallet ever could. She's not looking for a provider. She's looking for a presence. Lead with that. And the money? That'll just be a bonus. What you say about women tells her everything about you. She's listening to every word. Not just what you say about her, but how you talk about other women. And here's the habit that silently poisons her interest. Habit 4. Always complaining about modern women. She's on the date with you, but suddenly she's quiet. Not because you said something offensive, but because you started doing something all too common. Complaining. About women. About dating. About how they don't make them like they used to. You might think you're just being honest. But to her, it sounds like bitterness disguised as conversation. I've seen this happen too many times. Great guy, solid energy, until he starts ranting. Women today don't know what they want. Social media ruined dating. They only care about money now. And while you vent, she disconnects. Because here's what she's hearing underneath your words. I haven't healed from the past. I carry resentment. I've given up trying to understand. That's not attractive. That's emotional weight she doesn't want to carry. Women don't want to date someone stuck in a loop of frustration. They want someone who's risen above it. Someone who says, yeah, dating is different now, but I've adapted. I've grown. I'm still open. And let's be honest, if every woman you've met was a problem, maybe the problem isn't the women. A high-value man doesn't generalize. He observes, learns, moves forward without the chip on his shoulder. So if you're making complaints the core of your personality, stop. You're not building connection. You're building walls. Let your past teach you, but don't let it speak for you. Because when a woman hears a man who still carries bitterness, she knows there's no room for her light. The next one? She'll notice before you even speak. Before you say a word, she's already judged you. Not your face, not your shoes, your effort. Habit 5, dressing like you don't care anymore. Picture this. She walks into the room, confident, radiant, effortlessly put together. She took time to show up well. Then she sees you. Wrinkled polo, faded jeans, old sneakers. No eye contact with the mirror before you left the house. You stand, you smile, but without saying a word, you've told her everything. I stopped trying a while ago. And here's the hard truth, women notice. Not because they expect designer labels. Not because they want you to look like a runway model. But because how you present yourself tells her how much you value yourself. If you put zero effort into your own appearance, she'll wonder, how much effort will you put into her? I once heard a woman say, he was handsome, but he looked like he didn't care. About himself. About anything. And that killed it for me. That's the key word, care. You don't have to be trendy. You just need to look like you give a damn. Because when you carry yourself with intention, from your grooming to your clothes, you send a message. I respect myself. I'm still in the game. I have standards. And that energy? That's what women find magnetic. So no, don't dress like a teenager. But also don't dress like life is over. Style doesn't scream. It whispers, I'm a man who values his presence. And that presence? It's unforgettable. This next one hurts the most, because you think you're being wise. A lot of older men think they're offering wisdom. But what they're really doing is shrinking her. Here's how. Habit 6. Treating her like a child instead of a partner. She's talking fast, eyes wide with excitement. Telling you about a new book she's reading, a podcast that changed her perspective, or a business idea she's been dreaming up. And then you do it. You chuckle. Tilt your head. Say something like, that's cute, or, you'll understand it better when you're older. You didn't mean to dismiss her. But you did. And just like that, the spark dims. Because what she felt in that moment wasn't curiosity, wasn't admiration. It was condescension. See, this habit doesn't always scream. Sometimes, it whispers through tone, through body language, through a single raised eyebrow that says, I know more than you ever will. You may think you're being wise, sharing insight. But if it's always one-sided, if every conversation feels like a lesson, she won't feel connected. She'll feel small. I remember a woman once told me, I didn't need a father. I didn't need a coach. I needed someone who believed in my mind without correcting it every 5 minutes. And here's what most older men get wrong. Yes, you've lived more. Yes, you've seen more. But that doesn't make your experiences more valid. What truly earns respect isn't how much you know. It's how deeply you listen. A man who lifts her up, expands her thinking, makes space for her growth. He becomes unforgettable. The one who constantly talks down, he becomes noise she eventually tunes out. So if your instinct is always to teach, pause. Ask yourself, am I sharing or am I overshadowing? Because real connection doesn't require authority. It requires respect. The last habit is the most damaging of all, because you'll never see it coming. It doesn't show up loud. It doesn't come from a bad place, but it sends a message louder than anything else. You can't grow with me. Here's the final habit. Habit 7, believing you're always right. She's talking, sharing something that excites her, a new skill she's learning, a perspective she just discovered, a dream she's chasing. And before she finishes, you interrupt. Actually, that's not how it works. You'll get it once you're older. Let me explain the real way. In your mind, you're being helpful. In hers, you've just dismissed everything she said. Here's the truth. There's a fine line between being confident and being a know-it-all. You might not even realize you're doing it, this subtle need to correct, clarify, or show that you've been there, done that. But when every conversation becomes a fact-checking session, she stops feeling seen. She starts feeling invalidated. And no matter how old or wise you are, no woman wants to be in a dynamic where her ideas are always second-guessed. I spoke to a woman recently who said something that stuck with me. I want to grow with a man, not feel like I'm constantly trying to catch up to him. That's the key. You may have more experience, but she has insight too. Value. Perspective. And when you choose to listen instead of always lecture, something beautiful happens. You show her that even at your age, you're still curious, still growing, still evolving. And that's rare. Because the man who acts like he has all the answers eventually stops asking the right questions. But the man who makes space for her thoughts, who encourages her voice, that man becomes a mirror she wants to keep looking into. So ask less, assume less, listen more. You don't need to prove your intelligence. Your presence already does that. Younger women aren't avoiding older men. They're avoiding older men who've stopped growing. You want to be attractive? Drop the act. Stop performing. Be still. Be real. Be grounded. You don't need to chase youth. You need to radiate presence. Because when you show up with quiet power, when you own your age instead of fight it, when you lead without controlling, she won't care how many candles are on your birthday cake. She'll only care about the fire behind your eyes. this video was valuable, hit that like button and subscribe for more. This channel is for men who lead with self-mastery, not ego. Until next time, remain disciplined, remain grounded, and above all, remain in control.